Hi, good morning, everybody. Welcome into Morning of the Word. It's the 21st of July, and we're in Ezra chapter 3 today. In this particular chapter, which let me say from the outset, I took much more of your time yesterday than I typically do, and so today I'm going to make up for it by giving a little more of your time back. So I'm sorry for the windy Morning of the Word yesterday. We'll try to be a little more concise today. This particular chapter, it begins with the people all settled in their homes and scattered all across the land and beginning to resume the as normal a life as one can in such a time as this, which incidentally, I think there's something there that we can understand a little bit because they were trying to get back to what the new normal would be. And I think in some ways that's exactly what we're doing today too. But they were in their homes. They were trying to get back to a normal way of life. And they're called together on the seventh month for a meeting in Jerusalem. And in this meeting in Jerusalem, it is decided to reinstitute, first, to rebuild the temple. And in a beautiful and ceremonial way, the altar is rebuilt, which will be the very first step towards eventually rebuilding the temple, a process which will take a long time. But the altar is rebuilt ceremoniously, and on it is offered the sacrifices. This is very significant because you have to figure it's been a very long time since that has taken place. Not only is a sacrifice offered, but a festival is celebrated, the festival of the booths or the shelters. And this is a festival that, again, had not been celebrated by the Jewish people in several generations. And so there's a really exciting time of revival. They go so far as even reinstituting verse 5, the daily practices, the monthly practices, the rhythm of what it means to practice one's religion, one's faith, those aspects of practice that are involved in following God. And so it's a very exciting time. It's a time of revival. It's a time of being rejuvenated and being kind of having their religious practice brought back to life. And this fervor, this excitement of this then spurs them on to action of beginning the temple and even laying the foundation of the temple. And there is a lot of excitement that comes from this. The thing that comes to mind for me, and maybe this will be an applicable thought for you today as well, is that I find it interesting that a rejuvenation of the spirit results in a work of the hands. It's like when your spirit starts to get right, you get motivated to do things. And I mean that in a spiritual way, but I mean, obviously here there's a physical application of that. I think sometimes I have found myself in various periods of my life being spiritually unmotivated, knowing I needed to read my Bible more and just not really feeling it and not really doing it, knowing I needed to be more attentive to my prayer life, knowing I needed to be more intentional with gratitude or more generous with my giving or with my time. And I just didn't have the spiritual energy to drive that commitment, that knowledge of what I should be doing. And I think that what we have here is a situation like that. From the very day that they arrived back in the land of Judah, they understood that they should rebuild the temple. They knew they should do this. They knew they should get back to worshipful practices. They knew they should rebuild the altar and sacrifice and celebrate the festivals. They knew they should do these things. It wasn't that suddenly here in this chapter they realized, oh my goodness, this would be a good thing to do. It's in this chapter that they find the energy to do it. And how did they find the energy to do it? They found the energy by a spiritual reconnection. And I think that oftentimes that's what we need as well. I think that a lot of the things that we find ourselves saying, I just can't get myself to do this, might be motivated by a spiritual start. And perhaps it wouldn't be a poor choice for us when we hear ourselves say, I really need to get back in the Word. A lot of times what I would do is go and find a Bible reading plan or go and find a new devotional book. And those are all great things. But I wonder if maybe the first thing I shouldn't do, and maybe the next time I find myself in this, I'll try this, to start with a spiritual perspective and to talk to God about that, to say, I need the spiritual revival within me that's going to drive me to take the steps that I know I should take. That's what we see happening with the people, and I think there's something to be said about that. The last thing I'll share with you is that at the conclusion of this, there's shouts of joy and there's cries of pain. Some people knew what the temple looked like, and they knew that this paltry little foundation was a far cry from what the glories of the temple had been, and it made them sad. Some of them did not know what the temple looked like, and this was, as Zechariah 4:10 would say, a small beginning that should be honored. And so you got to kind of figure which side of that coin would you have been on, and in your life, which side of that coin are you on? I think sometimes those of us that have been Christ followers for a while are more inclined to beat ourselves up and to see our faults and to recognize what we're not. And when we do have a small beginning, when we do have a move towards restoration, when we do begin again to do better, instead of seeing that as something that we are excited about, we say, well, yeah, but I'm not where I used to be. I'm not where I once was. And the reality is that maybe you're not. But the key is to be moving forward. Wherever you are today, how can you move forward in your building of your temple? Peter says that we are stones, a living temple. And those living stones building a living temple. And every day we're adding to, building up that connection with God through that. So what can we do today to build that stronger? Hope you have a wonderful day. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.